Thank you for being here today. I'd ask you to please rise as we post the colors. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commander of the PLAV, World War II veteran and POW, Mitch Ramonis, and remain standing for the national anthem played by the Lynn Public Schools Band.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the region for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our country's anthem, for those of you who haven't been here before, it's an honor for us to play our country's anthem for a distinguished group of people, our veterans. Just so that you know, our country's anthem is taught at every grade level to be sung and performed the way it was written. The right that you have given them to ad-lib is not done in the public schools so that we know exactly how our anthems are. I hope you'll appreciate the seriousness of the most important piece of music taught in our public school system. This is supported by Dr. Latham, who is there in the back supporting us, most of all, our veterans. I hope you enjoy this rendition.
Please be seated. It's now my pleasure to introduce Father Al. Father Alphonse Ferrer has been a fixture at these events. He's a chaplain for the PLAV and a Marine veteran himself. Father Al.
It's always a joy to be here, to see you all here present as we recall something very special. And therefore we call upon the Lord our God to protect us, to guide us. And who are we? We, the land of the free. And in our prayer this morning, we ask you, Lord, to bless those who have protected us, our servicemen, our policemen, and all leadership that are bound for one principle: freedom, even freedom at cost. And so we ask you, Lord, those who have come back maimed, those who have come back without, we ask you to bless them. We also pray for the families who have to service the land, those whom we call wounded warriors, and those warriors that have come back who are seeking jobs. God, we are a nation, and we hope and pray that this nation will continue the good works of the past, works of Peace Corps and Vista, helping others in other nations to help themselves. As we have helped build Europe after the wars, we shall also continue in our endeavors to build peace throughout the world. Bless us, Lord. We pray as we remind each one of us here that which has been giving their lives and their wounds, that we may be free.
Thank you very much, Father. Before we begin the actual program, what I'd like to do is something we do every year, and I think it is a great idea, and it focuses the day on why we're here. So what I'd like to do before we begin is ask everybody in the audience, every veteran, to please stand and be recognized. This is a very special Veterans Day for me, since last year for Veterans Day I spent it in Afghanistan. So what I learned, and I think we all have learned along the way, is that those of us who serve and put our right hand up and join the military don't do it alone. We do it with our families. So I'd ask anyone who currently has family serving in the United States military or the family of veterans to please stand and be recognized as well. One of the people that stood up just now is a friend of mine named Doris Sarakas. She's here with her husband, Paul. And their son, Tony, an Afghanistan veteran, they lost him a couple years ago. And so we want to especially thank our Gold Star families that are here, thank them for their sacrifice, and let them know that we will never forget. And one thing I'd like to announce, when you leave today, many of you saw a backdrop up front, so we're going to have pictures for veterans and their families to commemorate the day as we leave here today. And everybody who served, and every veteran is going to receive a pin on behalf from the City of Lynn, thanking them for their service. Something that they can wear, let people know about their service, and not only that, remind people that in the City of Lynn, we mean it when we say thank you. So, before I begin with that, I'd like to introduce our elected officials and guests. And one last bit of housekeeping. Most of you who've been here would expect to see Jim DeFilippo up here. He's been a he's been emceeing these programs for at least a quarter century. He's under the weather, he can't make it today, but he's doing fine. He'll be here, and we'll be happy to see him here on Memorial Day. He wanted me to extend his regrets and say that he wanted to say thank you for your service in person. But again, I keep, Jim's a tough one. He'll be back up on him pretty soon. But he wanted to extend his regrets. So, well, I'd like to introduce some of our non-speaking guests before we get to our speakers today. With us today is Councilor at Large Buzzy Martin. Ward 1 Councilor Wayne Losey. Councilor at Large Hong Net. Ward 5 Councilor Diana Chakutis. And Councilor at Large-elect Brian LaPierre. With us as well as Ward 7 Councilor-elect Jay Walsh. And I was just informed, thankfully, that the Superintendent of Schools, Kathy Latham, is here. Dr. Latham. If I missed anyone, please let me know. That's a very good segue. I missed John Ford. John Ford is here as well from the school committee. Our speaking part of the program, of which Speaker Pond was a part, begins with our Mayor, Judith Flanagan Kennedy. I want to thank the Mayor. These events don't happen by accident. They take resources. The work we do in our office, they don't happen by accident, they take resources. We get those resources through the Mayor, the City Council, and the fact that the City of Lynn truly does understand that supporting veterans isn't just about words, it's about deeds. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Mayor Judith Flanagan.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank all of you for coming here today. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about in my little speech to you this morning, I started thinking back to what I've said many, many times at our Memorial Day program, and that is that so many people look at Memorial Day as just part of the first 3-day weekend of summer, and they don't remember or stop to think about the significance of that day. And today, as I was driving down here, I noticed the lack of cars on the road for a day that would seem to be a holiday, and one would think we would see more cars on the road on a holiday, which tells me that, at least for the private sector, people are not remembering this day the way they should, the way they used to. I mean, sure, we have kids home from school, and city offices closed, state, federal offices closed, but I think too many of us are starting to lose the meaning of Veterans Day and what it means to honor all of you out there who have served our country and those who have not come back after serving our country. So please, take a moment today, and if you look around and see a friend of yours who isn't here, ask them to just thank of that. Keep in mind the spirit of this day, and let's get back to the real meaning of Veterans Day. All of you obviously know what that is. I truly appreciate you all coming here. To all of our veterans that are here, thank you for your service. To Mike Sweeney, our veterans agent, and to all of the people who put some time and effort into planning this day, thank you as well. And I can assure you, the City of Lynn will never forget your service. Thank you all for coming.
The next person on the program is a stranger to no one here. Brendan Crichton is the Westland State Rep. He's been coming to these events for years. because he was a state rep, not because he was running for office, but because he supports veterans. Another person who we look to when we need help, Brendan Crichton and the state delegation have always been there. I think that should be noted because sometimes silence is deafening when people ask for help. Our state delegation is there. Ladies and gentlemen, Brendan Crichton.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for the warm introduction, for your service overseas, and for what you do for veterans every day. A number of events going on throughout the state today, so unfortunately some of my colleagues couldn't make it, but on behalf of State Senator Tom McGee, State Representative Bob Fennell, State Representative Lloyd Ehrlich, and State Representative Donald Wong, I wanted to say thank you to all the veterans and the families in the audience here today. It's really an honor for me to serve in the state legislature, and particularly with so many veterans and current service members. When we, we're working together on different policies and talking with my colleagues that have served in the military and that are still serving, they don't always like to talk about their service, but their actions on behalf of advancing benefits and policies of veterans speak volumes. And across the country, out of all the state legislatures, Massachusetts, as of 2013, had the most active serving state legislatures. And how we size up with the rest of the country is always impressive. It's something we need to continue to build on. We're #1 in the nation for veteran services with over 65 programs. But as I said, the mission doesn't stop there. There are hundreds of bills before the committee now that we're reviewing, and we really need to look out for all of our veterans every day. So look forward to working with my colleagues, and I thank you again for your service and for the honor to speak before you here today. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Pete Capano, Council Ward 6, Chairman of the City Council Veterans Committee, and a veteran himself. It does sound like we're saying the same thing over and over again about these people, but I tell you, it's true. He's another person. He's a go-to person. That's why he's here today. That's why they're all here today. Everyone you see on the stage, these are the people that show up, they care, and they do the work for veterans. And Pete Capano takes a backseat to no one in that regard, and I'm proud to call him a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Capano.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome to today's ceremony, and thank you for attending. I'm honored to be able to give a few short remarks with you on this very important occasion. We're here today to honor our veterans and to remember the sacrifices they have made and the courage it takes to defend honor, duty, and country. Excuse me. We are also here to take time out to recognize our veterans, to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. We are here today in the midst of family and friends and those who have nobly served our country in our great city of Lynn. Thank you to the veterans here today for their service, and thank you to the families of our veterans who often take a heavy burden and provide the support that only a family could give when their loved ones are away. The veterans we honor here today may come from different walks of life or backgrounds, but they all possess similar qualities. They possess courage, pride, dedication to duty, and integrity, and are all a tribute to the human spirit. They became part of something bigger than themselves because they wanted to protect the freedoms that we enjoy and sometimes take for granted. I know I'm repeating what I've said in the past, but I'm going to say it again. It's like the old phrase that bears repeating. It's not the preacher, the politician, or the media that has protected us. It's the veteran who has protected our freedom of religion, our freedom of the press, our right to vote and choose the people who represent us. The veterans who have served for us have protected our whole way of life. On behalf of my colleagues here, I would like to thank them for that. Thank you for attending today. God bless our troops, and thank you to the veterans for their service for our great country. Thank you so much.
As we move on with the program, Those of us who've been here before have seen vocalist Gail Bastrak. She's a treat. We're happy to have her. Ladies and gentlemen, Gail Bastrak with God Bless the USA.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my family by my side, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you to defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you to defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you, Gail. It's now my honor to introduce the Lynn English High School Marine Junior ROTC. In 20 years as head of this program, Sergeant Major Oswald and his cadre have not only turned these young men and women into an elite outfit who compete and win at the national level, they train future leaders and good citizens on behalf of the city. And we say thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lynn English Marine Corps Junior ROTC drill team. want to take a moment to recognize school committee member Rick Starboard is in the audience. Rick, thank you for being here. We're privileged today to have Colonel Mike Feiner with us as our guest speaker. In his over 30-year career in the Army National Guard, it's led him to war and back, and we believe he's a great choice to be here and be our guest speaker. Active in the military since 1983, Colonel Feiner's career has been marked by increasing responsibilities, including serving with distinction in missions of historical significance for our nation. He served during Operation Iraqi Freedom as garrison commander at Camp Cropper, Iraq, and commander 1st Battalion 181 Infantry Rear Area Operations Center, Iraq. He has also commanded soldiers as part of Task Force Yankee during Hurricane Katrina, as one of the first units on the ground in New Orleans. He currently serves as Director of Operations Joint Staff for the Massachusetts Army National Guard, which is comprised of over 8,500 soldiers, airmen, and civilians. His education includes a Bachelor's of Science degree from Babson College, a Master of Science degree from Bentley University, and master's degrees from both the Naval and Army War Colleges. Colonel Feiner is currently studying for his PhD. In his civilian career, Colonel Feiner is a CEO of Feiner Wealth Management in Swampscott, where he assists families and clients with investments and financial planning needs. He's a certified public accountant, a certified financial planner, and a chartered life underwriter. More important, Colonel Feiner has 2 children, Lizzie and Alex, his son, who's with him here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Mike Feiner.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It really is a dream to be up here, actually on this stage, because I do come to Lynn Veterans Auditorium quite often for performances. In my last performance, I sort of sat down on the right-hand side, so I've always wondered what it would be like to be on the other side. And in a month, I will be here actually for the Paul Anka concert. So, Mayor Flanagan Kennedy, it's a privilege to be invited to speak today and to address the wonderful citizens and veterans of Lynn, Massachusetts. I come to Lynn often, to the burgeoning downtown, and in fact, my mother lives in Lynn. So it's an honor to be here and to participate in this. I'd also like to thank Mike Sweeney for putting me to speak after that wonderful Marine Corps ROTC demonstration. So I feel like he kind of sandbagged me because they were so good. Now you get to hear me after that amazing presentation. I'd also like to thank the Lynn City Council. I know President, I think Dan Cahill isn't here, and Peter Capano and other City Council members, Representative Crichton. Thank you. I know Jim DiFilippo isn't here, but I want to acknowledge him, the Department of Veteran Services from Lynn, and other distinguished guests. As I mentioned, it's important to me. My son Alex, who's here on the right, joins me on Veterans Day because it is very important to celebrate these important occasions with family. But before I give you my personal remarks about Veterans Day, which is very important to me, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as to how Veterans Day came about. So our understanding in commemoration of this holiday, Veterans Day, has evolved over the generations and over the course of our nation's wars. The very first Armistice Day, which would later become Veterans Day, was first observed in a solemn fashion with reflective performances by military bands in cities and military posts in America. Rather than a tribute to what our veterans accomplished for our nation, Armistice Day was a remembrance for all of those members, service members, who died in World War I. Armistice Day was established as a celebration of the end of World War I, which occurred at the 11th hour, 11 o'clock, in the 11th month of November, on the 11th day, which is November 11th, 1918. Today, now at 11:40, we are celebrating the end of World War I, 97 years later. I want to first and foremost thank, once again, all the veterans who are here today with a round of applause. Now, Veterans Day is especially important to me because I have been in the Army now for 32 years, and I remember exactly where I was my first Veterans Day when I was a cadet officer on November 11th, 1983. About this time during the day, this massive, imposing Master Sergeant came up to me. He yelled across an auditorium and he said, "Finer, get over here." So I was scared of this Master Sergeant, very scared. I ran as fast as I could. He told me, "I want you to round up 5 fellow officer trainees because you are going to go to the Veterans Administration Hospital in Jamaica Plain to visit veterans tonight." I sort of stood there and didn't say anything because I was kind of scared of this Master Sergeant. And I went and rounded up 5 of my buddies so that we could go do it. And now you have to remember, I was 18 years old, and this was a Friday night, November 11th, 1983. So the other 5 guys didn't want to have anything to do with this initially because it was Friday night. I convinced them that we needed to do this, and we went to the Veterans Administration Hospital in Jamaica Plain. And they assigned each of us 3 different veterans to visit that night. So as I told everyone who I went with, it'll take us about an hour. After we're done, we can go out. They had some nice Irish pubs in Jamaica Plain, so everyone was excited to go. And this would be a quick thing. And at 18, I wasn't quite as interested or didn't quite understand the significance of visiting veterans, even though I had just joined the military. As they assigned me my first room to go visit on the 4th floor at the VA in Jamaica Plain, they told me that my veteran was 98 years old. At that point in my life, I had never met anyone who was 98 years old, especially in the 80s. It's not as common then as it is now. So I sheepishly went up to the room. I sort of looked inside to see an older gentleman curled up on his bed, very thin, very frail, not looking out the door, and I almost didn't want to go in the room. Honestly, I was a little bit scared. I didn't know what to expect. This was the first time I had ever done anything like that. But on cue, he sort of turned around and in a weak voice asked me to come in. He patted next to his bed and asked me to sit on his bed. And I went and sat on his bed, and he started to talk to me in a very low voice because he was very weak. I don't know if he was really 98, but at that time, he was definitely very, very old. And he asked me about myself for about 10 minutes. I didn't have that much to say, I was young. But then I finally mustered the courage, and I asked him about his military service and his family. First, he told me about his family. He said that his wife had passed away many years before. He only had one daughter who was still alive because he was in his 90s and all his kids were deceased and he was sort of alone in the world. And then he told me that he had served as a sergeant in the Yankee Division in World War I. And I was stunned. I had never met anyone who had served in World War I. And in fact, I'd never since ever met anyone who served in World World War I. He went on to tell me about his exploits. He was from Massachusetts. He had been in the Army before World War I and continued to serve. And he told me that on November 11th, 1918, when World War I ended, the 26th Yankee Division under General Clarence Edwards was there in France when the bells rang and the war ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. So 97 years ago today, that frail old sergeant was actually in France when the war ended and the bells rang and the Great War ended. And I was speechless. I knew that I was in the presence of a historical hero. I could tell he was getting very tired as he told me all this. So we wrapped things up and I got up and thanked him for his service, almost in tears. I was moved. And as I left, he thanked me for being part of the team. I walked back out, sort of shaken by all of this, and gathered myself, and then went on to visit the other two veterans that I was assigned to. One, a World War II veteran who had lost a leg in World War II. And as we talked about World War II, that veteran also thanked me for joining the Army and the military and for being part of the team. And my final veteran that I visited that night 32 years ago was a Vietnam veteran who today we acknowledge would probably have PTSD, and that's why he was there. And he too, despite everything, thanked me for his incredible service. I thanked him for his incredible service, but he thanked me for being part of the team. It took me about 3.5 hours for that visit that I thought would be an hour. And the same for my 5 buddies. We never ended up going out that night. We just met together, swapping stories because we were so moved. And that's when I realized partially that I was part of something bigger. I was one small part of the team, one small brick that is the foundation of America. That as veterans, we're a team. And I was part of something bigger. So fast forward to 90 years later, in 2008, when I was in Iraq. I was assigned to the 26th Infantry Brigade. And in fact, the symbol is right here. That was the same unit that my World War veteran from Jamaica Plain, the 98-year-old World War I veteran, was assigned to. So when things got tough in Iraq, as they often did, and we had to make hard decisions, it wasn't just a decision for me or for the soldiers, the airmen that I was with. I always thought back to those veterans before me to say, I cannot let them down. I cannot let them down. And in fact, for me, every time I go over the General Edwards Bridge right here in Lynn, I think of that old veteran. Because he served under General Edwards, who was the commander of the 26th Infantry Division in World War I, who was present on November 11, 1918, when that war ended. So for me, Veterans Day is about all of the veterans and the long line of veterans who have provided this history and this motivation, this team, throughout this country's hundreds of years of existence. So I want to personally thank the City of Lynn veterans in particular, who are here, veterans in general, and the families and friends and the city and government for supporting us that have allowed us to carry on this fine tradition throughout history. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. One more time, round of applause for Colonel Fine. Note to self, don't put anyone after the JROTC next time. On this part of the program, we're lucky. I mentioned the ROTC before. We're equally lucky in the City of Lynn to have the Lynn Public School Band led by Fine Arts Director Joe Picano and Band Director Stephanie Mayon. Anyone who's been to this event year in and year out and seen them perform around the city knows the high level of professionalism that they exhibit. And I think when you look at the ROTC and the Lynn Public Schools Band, it's a fine example of what Lynn has to offer, so we're proud to have them here. So now they build you up. The Lynn Public School Band will now play a patriotic medley. Very much, well done. It's now my distinct pleasure to call on a friend of mine to come up here. Anyone who's been to any of these events, nobody keeps saying that, but there's a man who everyone just sees walking around taking pictures. He doesn't like being in pictures, he takes them. He volunteers his time. He's a veteran. And he's always, whether it's this event, any veterans event in the City of Lynn, people see Jim Marriott. And I think far too often, we don't say thank you in life appropriately enough. And a guy like that, who volunteers his time, develops pictures of everybody. Any picture you've seen on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/LynnVets, I have to put that in. They come from him most of the time. You've seen his pictures in the Lynn Journal and different places. He's not looking for credit. He's an artist, he's a painter. He's an incredibly interesting man. But he does this for veterans. You don't see him at all kinds of events all over the place. He makes sure he does it for veterans because he is one. He served from 52 to 1960 in both the Air Force and the U.S. Army. He's a gentleman. We would never have gotten him down here had we told him we were doing this. So I will throw Mary Cronin Lepresti under the bus. She may have fibbed to him and told him that we needed to come down and take pictures. So he came down this morning with his camera, and when we told him what we were going to do, he said flat out, "Oh, I would not have come." We're proud to have him here. And again, I'd like everyone to give him a good round of applause because and ask the mayor and the elected officials to come join me up here as we present Jim Marriott his plaque. He's telling everyone how embarrassed he is. Presented to Jim Marriott in recognition of the many years of dedicated service to the veterans of the City of Lynn. Thank you, Jim. Honestly, you can get off stage very fast. It's with that in mind that you think of the people who put some of this on. We talked about the resources. Truly, we could not put on events like this or do the work we do in our office without the resources and the assistance from our elected officials and our friends in government. But the work, the day-to-day work to get done what we have to get done is, and put on events like this, which honor veterans, and I think appropriately, come from the work of our staff, Mary Cronin Lepresti, Jeff Hollett. Anyone who knows what it's like to do these sort of things knows that you wouldn't do it without your family, so thank you, and I thank my wife, Sarah, for her help. This year, like I said, last year this time I was in Afghanistan, and before I came home, I was able to get down to USO. I had an opportunity. I'd heard that Arthur Salkins wasn't doing well. I know a lot of people here know Arthur. And I was able to give Arthur a call. Before he passed away, I believe I wasn't here, obviously, I think he passed away, I think the 10th or the 9th. It's a good example of why, the people who do the work should be recognized. So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment on this Veterans Day to acknowledge all the hard work for the last generation of Veterans Day done by people, by Arthur Salkins and the men and women like him, and thank them for everything they do. And this is my favorite part of the program. The Lynn Public Schools Band will now play a medley of service songs. And we ask that you please stand to be recognized when your service song is played. And if you're unable to stand, please just raise your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lynn Public Schools Band. Would you please rise for a moment of silence, followed by taps, played by Dick Perry and Ryan Whittier of the Lynn Public School Band. We ask you to remain standing following taps as Gail Bastrach will sing Amazing Grace. As part of my closing remarks, I want to make, actually, as I look out here, I want to make sure I notice, coming from, has made a point to be here, coming from another event, Senator Tom McGee is here. Thank you very much for being here, Senator. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, as you go outside here after the program, if you're a veteran, there'll be a pin you can get, commemorates not only the day, but thanks you for your service. And a photographer will be out there to take pictures of you and your family, and again, to commemorate the day. And anyone who wants to get those pictures, they'll be on our Facebook page sometime this afternoon and going forward. What I'd like to do right now is ask the Lynn Marine Corps Junior ROTC to join me on stage, and ask the Lynn Public Schools Band to please stand. As I touched on before, these programs, our parades, and the things we do would not take place for the people who do the work. They do a lion's share of the work. And so I'd like to, on behalf of everybody here, and on behalf of the City of Lynn, say thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to call on Father Al for the convocation.
Just a brief reflection here for the youth here, the JROTC, this wonderful Lynn band. You exemplify something more pronounced and more profound. When you see the news, there's all somewhat close to your peers, or the anger, the violence. But your spirit here is stronger than all the repressed anger. You have given us your heart, your music, and the ROTC, a pride for these United States of America, all in one. And I wish to say thank you also. You're very special. And in closing, I would just to say this to you, recite this. Our fathers, God to thee, author of liberty, to thee we pray. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us from thy might. Great God, the God of all of us, our King. May the Lord bless each and everyone here, and for all those who serve the Lynn community. For we are blessed. We are the best in the north of Boston. The Lord bless you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
We now close the program with Gail Bastrach singing God Bless America. We invite you to sing along. Ladies and gentlemen, for the final time, Gail Bastrach.
I'll try to sing a little lower than normal so that we can all join in. after that.